record on this computer. Do you see that it's recording?
Yes, I think so. It says recording in the corner with a little red
Okay,
dot.
perfect. All right, let's start at the very beginning. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Chico. I
Okay.
live in Durham, but I was born in Chico on September 6th, 2002.
So you're a Virgo, which
Hmm.
means that you're sensitive, talkative, attention to detail. I don't know, how would you describe yourself as a Virgo?
I would say definitely attention to detail. I like to take charge when I know what I'm doing. And I like being a Virgo. I know some people like don't like their sign and want to be a different sign, but I like being a Virgo.
Um, and then what about siblings? What do you have and who's in your family?
I have three siblings, so there's four of us total. I have an older sister who's 7 years older than me, and her name is Grace. I have an older brother named Joe, who's 5 years older than me, and then I have an older brother named Grant, who's 3 years older than me.
So you're the
I
baby.
am the baby, the youngest.
And how has that influenced you? I mean, did you expect to be taken care of and treated specially or
I basically just played catch up a lot. I really wanted to be the places that my siblings were at. I had a hard time being where I was. So I definitely tried to play a game of catch up and like see how fast I can do things so I can get like to their level for a while. And I don't think it was initiated by my parents at all. I think it's just kind of something that I did. But I don't know, being the youngest, I've definitely done a lot of coaching for my parents. My parents and I have spent a lot of time like working on our relationship together and learning how to love each other in the way that we need to be loved instead of the way that we just love. And so that's been a really cool thing to go through with my parents because instead of growing against me and having issues all the time, we're growing together and we're trying to do it together instead of separate, which is really cool.
what kind of principles guided you in your coaching and where did you learn them?
A lot of them I've learned in therapy. I've learned a lot about like what I should take from people, what I shouldn't take from people, what where I should stand up for myself, where to learn that I'm being triggered and I'm not actually being attacked, and things like that have been really, really helpful tools from therapy. Therapy is definitely one of the top most important things that helped save me with my bipolar for sure.
And when did you start seeing a therapist?
When I was 14, so I've been going to therapy for 8 years now.
And what was the catalyst, the initiative to go see a therapist so young?
When I was at that age, I was kind of like talking to somebody like I was in like a kind of relationship and they decided to cheat on me. And so I was very distraught and confused because I really loved that person at that time. And so that kind of just the confusion and the betrayal sent me to therapy because I was like, I don't know what to do. And I'm having such a hard time existing in my brain and I want to be able to exist in my brain. And so I had heard about other people going to therapy and my mom had suggested it. And so I was like, you know what? I think I want to try it. And I'm really glad that that is something that I tried.
And you've been doing it kind of off and on or on since.
Pretty consistently for the past 8 years. Yeah. I occasionally will like change the frequency of my therapy. Right now I go bi-weekly, so every other week. I have gone weekly, I've gone once a month. I've done like a couple of different like versions of space in between my appointments. My therapist now is super flexible and lets me add or reduce sessions very easily, which is really cool. She's a great therapist. I'm really lucky to have found her.
What kind of approach, like there's people who do EMDR and who
Mhm.
do cognitive restructuring and people who do like, there's all different approaches. What have you found to be the most useful for you?
One thing that's really helpful for me is brain spotting. My therapist does that, and that one is a really nice one. It's a little less intense. EMDR can be really emotional and can be overwhelming. It's because it's a therapy that I have tried that doesn't work for me, but I know works for other people. So I'm glad it's out there. But yeah, definitely talk therapy is really, really important to me. I need to get the things that I have to say out. And it's really helpful to have a level headed, unbiased reflection back of certain things because sometimes I just get really in my head about stuff. And yeah, having somebody else break it down for me can be really a game changer.
And how do you describe brain spotting to someone who doesn't know about that?
It's kind of like so they take this stick and they have a ball on the end of it and they kind of switch back and forth a little bit.
EMDR.
It's like it's very similar. And then when they move it, different things happen and you can feel different sensations in your body and stuff like that. So, we've like talked through certain things and for some reason it seems to be just a little less intense in a way for me, which is cool because sometimes I got really overwhelmed when I tried EMDR therapy and it made me like cry a lot and stuff like that. So that was a little overwhelming because at that point in time, I was also trying really hard to not cry at everything. So I was like, I don't need to cry more right now. So, yeah, they definitely use like they trigger similar things in the brain, which
So
is,
that you look at the ball while you're talking about whatever is up for you at that time.
yeah. And I've only done it a couple of times. I haven't done it, like a lot of times because I do more talk therapy than I do brain spotting. But the few times that we've done it, it has been a helpful way to get me to start feeling differently because I can think differently all I want. Sometimes my feelings don't line up with how I'm thinking. So sometimes that's a way to get my feelings back on track.
So you could be thinking, I feel angry, but I don't feel angry. So I want to
Mhm.
get in touch with that.
Yeah, or like I'm feeling really, really angry, but I don't understand why. And it's kind of a way to be like, oh, okay, maybe this is causing that anger or something like that.
Got it. Um, and what have other siblings in your family done therapy and found it useful? Or are you the only one?
My sister does therapy as well and finds it very useful, and so does my mom.
And
So,
has anyone else been diagnosed bipolar?
no, just me at this point in time.
And when did someone say to you, I think, Claire, that you are have symptoms of bipolar?
It was about a year and a half ago when I got my professional diagnosis.
And what led them to diagnose with those words?
Um, I had a really bad shopping addiction. I had a really hard time feeling joy from forms other than purchasing things.
Wow.
And so it got very out of control and very uncomfortable because me and my partner got overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that I accumulated. And so I had to do a lot of therapy and I've definitely gotten better, but getting that diagnosis, that was one of the things that I was like, hey, this is really out of control and I don't know how to stop. And she was like, that is a very common thing for people with bipolar is they have really bad spending habits. And so
Ah.
it was so relieving to hear that because I was like, I'm not crazy. This has been such a difficult subject and just something that's can be embarrassing to talk about and share. And so, having a therapist that's supportive and having a psychiatrist that listened to me when I said, hey, I think I have this going on. Can you like question me like you would if you were going to see if I have bipolar? And so the questions that we went through, she was like, I definitely think you're bipolar. So hearing that was hard, but it was also like, I'm not crazy. My brain is doing things and it's making it hard for me to have a normal life. And so hearing that, it brought me a lot of relief.
Hmm. Did you shop like in thrift stores so you could buy
Yeah, I
stuff for
was a
20
big
bucks?
thrifter. I would thrift pretty regularly. Um, so yeah, I have been careful to when I go through my stuff to redonate instead of to throw away because we don't need any extra stuff in the landfill and maybe somebody will buy it at a thrift store. So I've been careful as I can to try and be more sustainable when it comes to that kind of issue because that was a big issue and it was really hurting me and hurting the planet. And so it's been something that helped me kind of rein it in a little bit too, is thinking about it that way.
Um, okay, so when I think of bipolar, I think of alternate periods between depression and high
Mhm.
energy mania, doing, wild, out of control stuff. Have you
Yeah.
experienced those ups and downs?
Yeah, I have had quite a few different episodes, both depressive and manic. And so I had a manic episode when my partner and I started dating. I would stay up all night long, multiple days in a row, and wouldn't sleep for a while. And I just felt like doing everything under the sun, and I wanted to hang out with everybody and do everything all the time. And so when that died down, I would say it took about like 6 months or so. And so now I would say I have had like, I think two manic episodes in the time that we've been together. But for the other periods of our relationship, I have been in the depressive because, like, right now, I am on the right medication for my anxiety and for a portion of my bipolar, but I'm still missing that perfect medication for my bipolar at this point in time. So I'm
Wait, anxiety is a different diagnosis
it's
than bipolar or not?
different, but they can feed off of each other. So
Oh,
having them like squared away can help dial down other components of the disorder, if that makes sense.
so they're treating you for anxiety with medication and what else?
They're treating me for anxiety and then bipolar. They used to treat me for just major depressive disorder, but now they treat me for bipolar depression.
So the traditional one was lithium that they use for people who are bipolar.
Yes, and I haven't tried that one. That one, and there's one other one. Let me see if I can find the name of it that I haven't tried that I'm going to talk with my psychiatrist about trying, which is called risperidone.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't tried that one yet. So I'm gonna talk to her about trying that one and then talking to her about trying lithium. My partner had a really bad experience on lithium, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna have a bad experience. So I've been trying to call my psychiatrist, but she just had a death in the family, so things are a little crazy at the moment. So I'm waiting to see her and hopefully the next one is the right one.
And does insurance pay for these therapists and psychiatrist visits?
Yes, my insurance pays for most of my psychiatrist and pays for my therapy. My parents have to pay upfront costs for it, but they get reimbursed later for it, which is really nice.
And so you're covered under their insurance until you're 20,
26.
26. Then
Yeah.
what?
Then I don't know. We're gonna have to figure something out because with all of the disorders and diagnoses I have a lot of medical um, upkeep and care. So um, I know we'll figure something out, but it'll definitely it's been much easier being under 26 at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what do you find works in terms of non-pharmaceutical? You said talking to the therapist and
Yeah,
understanding your emotions really helps.
talk
Um,
therapy has been very, very helpful. And there was another one. I'm trying to find it. Yoga is another thing that really helps me. Yoga is really, really good for both my bipolar and my fibromyalgia. It just kind of gets me out of my body and out of my head for a minute, which is really, really nice. I get like in tune with my body in a different way, and I'm using my brain in a different way when I'm doing yoga. So it's like it's a big break for me from stuff, which is really nice.
So the fibromyalgia leads to fatigue.
Yeah, I do get a lot of fatigue from my fibromyalgia. Being in pain is exhausting,
Uh,
both mentally and physically. So I do require more rest than the average person. But at this point in my life, I have the time to sleep for like 9 hours almost every night, which is perfect for me. Then I feel rested and it helps me tackle what I have going on, which is really cool.
um, so do you work food cashiering and whatever full time, or how much of that week does it take?
I work 3 days a week and then I work 5 hours a shift.
So that's kind of doable in terms of
Yeah.
your coping with all of this.
Yeah, and like the co-op, they are so nice to me. Like if I am hurting at all, if I'm in my head, if I'm anxious, they always understand and they can always send me home early or they adjust my schedule if I took on too much. They've been by far the kindest and most
Hmm.
considerate place I have worked since and I started working when I was 14, the same time I started therapy. So I've been working for the past 8 years and I am so grateful that I found the co-op. I don't know where I'd be without him, truly.
Have you had college courses along the way, or have you had
I
room
did
for
try to
that?
go to manicuring school and I also tried to go to cosmetology school, but with my disabilities, I'm autistic as well as with my fibromyalgia and my bipolar. So I have a very big stack that works against me when it comes to the school system. And my teacher that I had at cosmetology school was very inconsiderate and did not care to help me. So it was really, really hard to be in that environment, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I had to not do it, unfortunately. But I think if I feel differently and I go to a different school, someday I might still pursue that. I just am not going to pursue it at this point in time.
Right. So when I think of being on the spectrum, I think of overload to one's brain. I think of maybe not reading people's communication cues accurately, but how would you say, why would you say you're on the spectrum?
I'm definitely very emotional and I get overwhelmed by my emotions and overstimulated by my emotions because my emotions can also bring about a lot of physical, like, symptoms and sensations. My chest will get really tight, my throat feels like it's closing, stuff like that. Yeah. So, and I also like I cannot have stuff on my hands. The only thing that can really be on my hands is like water, soap, and lotion. Otherwise, I it drives me crazy. Like it sends me through the roof. I hate having like slime on my hands. I don't like when my hands have a scent on them. I'm very, very particular about that kind of stuff.
But I think of you as being socially adept and sensitive. I mean, I think you pick up people's cues with
I
sensitivity and accuracy.
I practiced that a lot when I was working at Trader Joe's. I worked at Trader Joe's for 2 years, and I was also at Trader Joe's while I was going to cosmetology and manicuring school. So when I was working, I worked really, really hard to figure out how to hold a conversation with anybody regardless of what they were giving me. And that has kind of been a reason why a lot of people don't realize that I'm autistic because I can hold that conversation. I have practiced eye contact. And so I can do those sort of masking things that help make the other person feel more comfortable, but that doesn't always mean that I'm comfortable in that situation, if that makes sense.
Mm. Sometimes people on the spectrum do kind of, movements to, I forget what's called, where you stem, I think it's called stemming,
Yeah.
to deal with the extra energy they feel, I think.
Mhm.
Has that ever been part of your behaviors?
Um, yeah, sometimes like I will have like if I get the shivers, it makes my like I shake a lot for a second. It like I don't know how to explain it other than like I just get like a whole like shake and a rush through my whole body when I get the shivers. And that is like I see that as one of my stems because most people, when they get the shivers, they're just like, ooh. But for me, it's like a whole body thing.
Huh, that's interesting. Uh,
Yeah, it is. It's very
yeah.
interesting.
How does this affect your relationship with your partner that you live with?
Um, it honestly makes our relationship even more special and connected. He's autistic as well, so we really understand each other and we can see when the other is getting overstimulated and things like that. And that has been so helpful having somebody that just sees you for who you are and understands why you do the things that you do. It's really special to have that. It really is.
What kind of work does he do? Yeah.
He works in stocks, so he updates people's like stock information and helps them sell their stocks and transfer them if somebody has passed and stuff like that.
Hmm. So he's a paper guy.
He's all of his stuff is
Mm-hmm.
actually online. He does a ton of typing.
Um, so if you were giving advice to someone who's now 14 who's dealing with fibromyalgia or autism or bipolar or anxiety, um, what would you say? What do yoga, find someone you could talk through all these feelings with.
Yeah, definitely do yoga. Definitely if you have the resources, get a therapist. Um it gets better. It does. It's hard and you have hard moments, but it gets so much better than where you start and where you end up throughout your life. Like, I just want people to know that, like, as bad as you feel, you're going to feel just as good at some point. You just got to find the right people to be around. You got to find the right meds and you got to find the right lifestyle. And I think those really, really help make things doable and make life worth living instead of just being alive.
Just struggling. Um, what about like meditation or
Hmm.
spiritual belief? I'm gonna shut the door so we don't hear that dog. Bella, you're too loud.
Our dogs are pretty loud too.
The male lady probably just came.
Mhm.
What about spirituality, meditation, that angle?
I consider myself Buddhist. I'm not insanely well versed in the practice, but whenever I read about it and whenever I have practiced the things that they talk about in Buddhism, it has been a huge game changer. I read this book called If the Buddha Dated, and it changed my life. It changed how I dated people. It changed how I took care of myself and how I saw myself. And it was just so nice to hear such organized thoughts that made so much sense to me. So reading that book was a huge,
Like, how did it change your attitude? What are some examples?
it just like reminded me like I don't want to pretend to be somebody for my entire relationship with someone. I want to be myself. I don't want to have that mask up. I want to just be who I am as much as I can. And learning how to do that is hard, but it is really important and it's a special thing to master.
Um, Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, says that
Mhm.
on the spectrum is a gift because you can really focus and you can kind of block out distracting interference from other people because you can really focus. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yeah, I definitely have some nice hyper focus tendencies sometimes. There are certain things that I will like really hone in on. And like that's one of the things that has connected me so much with customers at the co-op is like we just get into it when we're chatting and I love it. It makes me so happy. Like we just enjoy talking to each other. And I think that is such a cool thing because like 2.5 years ago we were all strangers and now I have all of these really cool friends just because I work there.
Hmm. Um, so what do you take from Buddhism that helps you manage these challenges?
One thing that I really, really like from it is about walking on your own path and that people can join you on your path and they can walk next to you, but they're still going to have their own path as well. And it's okay to be on our own path, but like somebody can hold our hand while we walk that path too. And it's just like a nice balance of like be yourself and take care of yourself, but also appreciate the earth, appreciate the world, appreciate good people around you. There's so many things to be grateful for, and I there's probably more to be grateful for than there aren't. So that's a definitely a takeaway from Buddhism for me.
Hmm, interesting. Um, do you think there's anything about your genetic history or family history that you ended up with all these challenges? Because that's a fibromyalgia, bipolar, anxiety. Those are big challenges.
Yeah, some of it I think is genetic. I think I've been bipolar my whole life, but like my fibromyalgia was brought on because I had an abusive partner for 2 years and that triggered fibromyalgia in my body.
And so none of your other siblings have the same kind of challenges.
No, my sister has like IBS, and she also has complex PTSD, but I definitely have the most disorders in my family.
Hmm. And how did your parents cope with it, with
It
you
was
growing up?
hard. At first, they just didn't want it to be true, so they just kind of denied it for a while. But after a while, after they saw how much I was suffering and how like as as much as people didn't want to believe it was just my reality. And so eventually they were like, you know what? I see that you're struggling and I see that you're going through this and we want to hold your hand instead of hurt you more, which is really cool.
Um, was going to Durham High, is that where you went?
Hmm.
Was that was sitting in class all day a challenge?
It was really hard. And it was also really hard because I did not get along with my classmates. They didn't like me. I didn't let them harass me. I didn't let them walk all over me. I was like, you are not going to treat me like shit because you treat the rest of the world like shit. And they didn't like that. They really hated that. They hated that I wasn't going to be quiet about it sometimes. And it just made it that much harder to be sitting in that room because I was in a room full of people that didn't really like me, that didn't care about my well being, and I had to spend time with them. And that was really hard. And at that time, I had just left my abusive partner and I was figuring out how to live in a world after something like that has happened. And it was just a really difficult time for me, and they did not help whatsoever. But I have 3 or 4 friends from high school that are the world to me. And I
Oh,
would go through all of that again to have them as friends.
would it be possible to talk to a counselor or a teacher, or were there any adults at school who could have your back?
I did talk to people and I talked to the school counselor a lot. I use that resource all the time because I was going through crisis a lot at Durham. And so they definitely helped me out, but at some point you get so tired of screaming and nobody's listening that you just stop screaming. And yeah, I'm grateful that I don't have to do high school again.
Yeah, it's hard time because people are so peer identified, and if you don't have a supportive peers, then it's really hard. But it sounds like you did.
Yeah, I had a couple that kept me going, that kept me doing okay, and that I'm really grateful for those few because they are worth it.
If we look at everything as like a karmic lesson in growth and purification and development, what would you say you've learned from dealing with these challenges?
Things hurt less when you look at it like that.
Hmm.
They don't feel as personal. Sometimes when things are happening over and over again, or like you just have constant big life events going on and you can't make them stop. It's like, am I doing something? Is this me? Like, I really don't understand why these things keep happening and why they keep seeming to happen to me. But when you kind of take yourself out of it and you realize that all these things that happen with other people happen to do with mostly them, not you, you feel a lot less of that, oh my God, I am terrible and there's something wrong with me kind of thing. It starts to go away.
Why did it take 2 years to break away from the abusive boyfriend in high school?
I didn't even realize that he was abusive until 2 weeks after I left him. I just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm miserable. I have feelings for another person. That's not supposed to happen when I'm in a relationship with somebody that I'm really into. And I just was, I could tell I was unhappy. I just didn't realize how serious it had been until a couple of weeks afterwards. And then I was like, holy shit, I think I just left an abusive person and went through an abusive relationship, and that has
Emotionally abusive rather than physical?
he wasn't physical, but he was emotionally abusive, and he was sexually abusive, which some people consider physical, but I kind of consider a different kind of category.
Mm.
So yeah, it was definitely a really difficult relationship and really confusing, but I have a really special connection with people because of it. I am able to like see another person in crisis and help them feel okay for a second. And that is a gift. And I will always be grateful for that gift because, like, it just happened the other day. My partner and I were at Planned Parenthood for an appointment, and this girl is just freaking out. She's like, hey, do you mind if I ask them a question? I know you've been in line. I just really need to ask them something. I was like, go ahead, whatever. My partner's already back there. I don't need any help right now. Like, take your time. Are you doing okay? Do you need anything? And she was just like, oh my
Oh,
God, like, thank you. I just really needed somebody to like care for a second. And I'm like, well, you got the right person. I definitely care about whatever the hell's going on.
oh,
And it was just a really special moment and it warmed my heart. And I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. It really is.
As a person who's interested in food and nutrition, have you found like there are whole books about um, food and herbs and like to calm and help with the depression? Have you found any of those kind of help remedies helpful?
I haven't necessarily found a remedy that's been helpful herb wise for my brain situation. I have found things like um
Like SAMI is supposed to be good for depression and um, what St. John's wort for.
I can't have St. John's wort. It interacts with medications that I take, unfortunately, because that is one that I did really want to try. So if I'm ever off the medications that it interacts with, I definitely think I'll try it. But as of right now, I haven't found much. I do find some help if I'm like at level 100, just freaking out, not doing well. If I smoke weed, it does help calm me down a lot and it can kind of take me out of that level 100,
Ah.
which is really helpful. So I can use that as a tool sometimes. But I do have to be careful because I have addiction issues in my family. And so that definitely plays a part in trying to manage what is an appropriate amount.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that we've forgotten about that helps manage and feel good?
My dog. My dog makes all the difference in the world. When I didn't have my partner, having my dog kept me going. There was nothing in this world that could take me out enough to make me leave him. And that can be really, really important and life saving for somebody that's bipolar because you get a lot of suicidal ideation when you're bipolar. You can be in that dark headspace a lot, and having somebody that you provide for that cares if you show up every day and really you are their favorite person, it keeps you here. It really does. And that is, I think, an understated thing that can really, really help with what we struggle with.
Can you feel like if you're coming down from a mania, mania into a depression, can you feel the change and the dip down? And can
It
you
depends.
intervene?
Sometimes I can. Sometimes I can be like, whoa, I'm getting a little crazy. I'm wanting to buy everything that's ever existed. Then I'm like, okay, I think I might be a little manic. But sometimes it'll take a little while for me to realize that I'm in the depressive state. That normally takes like at least a few weeks, if not a couple of months before I'm like, you know what? Things have not been right for quite a while.
Mm.
Like, there's times where I feel off, but I can't figure out why or where or how. I just know that I don't feel right. And so that's kind of a hard thing to work with because it's like we don't know if this is lifestyle, if it's medication. Sometimes it's like it can be either or. So that definitely is a little difficult trying to figure out sometimes. But I have a really good psychiatrist that I really trust that is wicked smart. So I feel very safe with her, which is really cool and helpful too.
The people say usually it can take months before you find the right meds to balance things out. Have you found that it takes time, or did you get the right meds right away?
I've definitely found that it takes time. I still think I'm missing that right bipolar medication. I have some that, like my olanzapine, that helps with some bipolar stuff. But I definitely like the one that I'm taking right now is called Vraylar. It's Vraylar, and it's also a bipolar medication, but it's not, I don't feel like it's doing anything for me. I still have a hard time doing daily chores and tasks and things like that. Showering is hard, stuff like that. So I'm calling my psychiatrist again on Monday because it's been a week since she has replied to me. So I am trying to get back into her. But what's been exciting about this round of medication adjustment and change is that I've been able to work through it for the first time. I normally have to take off work and I have to do a leave of absence. And I haven't had to do that this time. I've been able to continue going to work. So that's been really, really exciting. So I am also seeing some little spots where I can see progress, which is really exciting.
Where you have control. So
Mhm.
where would you say you are now in the manic?
I'm more so in the depressive right now, but having a good support system makes it as bearable as being depressed can be. That's for sure. I'm definitely content in my life. I just have depression, and so that's hard sometimes.
The most common remedies that are holistic for depression are and anxiety are meditation and exercise. So
Yeah.
you mentioned yoga, and I'm I know for me, if I'm anxious about something, walking helps. I hit the orchards and walk.
Yeah, I agree. Walking is also a very, very helpful thing. It makes me feel so good and connected and grounded and relaxed. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do, especially right now with the weather. It's pretty hard to beat.
The almond orchards and blossom.
It's pretty lovely. We're pretty lucky.
Well, what about doing things like listening to funny movies? Or I know
Yeah.
Norman Cousins had a, debilitating illness and he just rented a room and watched funny movies. So you kind of brainwash yourself into laughing.
Yeah, me and my partner love to watch a silly show. We'll watch like bad dating reality shows and then we look at each other and we're like, we are so grateful for our relationship because these people are crazy. We are not like them and this is very nice. So we get a really good laugh out of that, which is always a lovely part of the day. We always
Good.
sit down and watch something together at least once a day, which is a nice us time thing.
Good. Have we left anything out that comes to you in terms of helping other people dealing with these issues?
Hmm. I think bike riding and swimming is something that's also really good to do for happiness. That is like a little bit more accessible if you can't like do therapy and maybe get a bike, go for walks and swim, get out in nature and just enjoy nature and ground yourself as much as you can. I think that makes a huge difference.
Hmm. You'll have to come sometime to the Reiki and
Mhm.
chakra balancing on Wednesday and see if there are any benefits there.
Yeah, I really want to do the chakra balancing. I haven't made it there yet, but I really would like to do the chakra balancing. That is always good for us.
Great. Oh, thanks, Claire. I'm glad I feel like I got to know you a little bit more. That's a treat.
I
And
know it was really cool to talk about this.
oh, good. All right. Well, then, when I get the transcript, I'll get it to you and we'll go from there.
Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of this really nice day.
You too.
Thanks.